permission to you guys on yours. You guys see that? And you have to, I think you say like, got it. Is that the official button? Okay. And that's just giving me permission to record. Again, when we meet tomorrow morning, I will have our YouTube channel created and I'll share the link with you. So then you can have that information to get ready for next Sunday. You know, we talk about preparing you for the exam, but I do think post-licensing also helps you get, you know, in the real world as well. You have to have a strong foundation. You have to have a strong knowledge. And that's what post-licensing is doing. Again, we're taking what you learned in that whirlwind that was pre-licensing. And now we're going to slow down just a hair and we're going to enhance some of those more important topics. Any questions or comments before we officially get started? You guys are just ready to go, aren't you? So let me share my screen with you. And again, as we said, we are in post-licensing 303. This is the North Carolina law, rules and legal concepts. I always like to make sure you guys are in the right place. Just a quick introduction of who we are. You guys have all had some kind of communication with Lane Young. Isn't Lane amazing? Don't we just love Lane? Lane's awesome. I'll say that again. Lane is awesome. She blows my mind how, I don't know, she's about the busiest person I know. And she's so busy and she's always got a smile on her face and she's happy to talk to you. So she is awesome. If you don't know how to get in touch with Lane, anything related to the school, here's her phone number and email. Reach out to her with any concerns or comments or again, anything, Lane can help. And then my name is Julie and I'm going to be with you for the next couple weekends. So here's my phone number and email. If you don't already have this information, please go ahead and jot it down. I encourage you guys to reach out to me with questions. I don't want you to go through these next couple weekends feeling like you're not getting something, feeling like you're struggling. Again, it's not just about getting you guys through the test. We want you to have a good understanding of this material as well. So never, ever hesitate to reach out to me. Let me help. And I know my email is long, I'm sorry, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Because who am I? I am Julie, the real estate instructor at gmail.com. So that makes it easier for you to remember. Once you put it in once, you don't have to put it in again. Just a quick background on myself. Let's see, July, next month, I will celebrate 21 years in the real estate industry. So I've been in real estate for a minute. I still don't know everything. I don't have all the answers to your questions. It's just one of those industries that's constantly evolving, constantly changing. This market that we're in right now, in 21 years, I've never seen anything like it before. I don't know the market that we're going to be in next, but I guarantee you, I've never seen anything like it before. And that's the thing with real estate is as we're constantly changing, evolving, things change as well. I often joke that the only thing consistent in this industry is change. So hang on to your hat. I started as an administrator. I did admin work for about 15 years. I took care of my agents and let my agents go take care of the public and make all the money. I eventually made the switch into sales and education. Today, I'm teaching for Carolina School of Real Estate. I also still am affiliated with the sales team. I've kind of taken a few steps back from sales. And funnily enough, I found myself back at my administrative roots. So with my real estate firm, I'm back to taking care of my agents. So my agents can go out and take care of the public, help them buy and sell. So isn't it funny how we kind of go back to what we know, go back to what we're familiar with. So I've come full circle now, I guess. I'm not sure what's next. I guess I got about 20 some more years to, to figure that out. Everybody have this stuff written down so you can get me if need be. Everybody got it? Okay. You guys, as most of you know, there is an attendance requirement in any class provided by the Real Estate Commission. For post-licensing, there's a 90% attendance, which means you can only miss 10%. In a 30-hour class, 10% shakes out to 3 hours. So if you miss more than 3 hours, then you will not be eligible for the end of class exam next Sunday. And you'll just reach out to Lane and she'll work on getting you scheduled in another class. We understand sometimes things come up. Hopefully nothing will, but in the event that it does, please just reach out to Lane. In order for me to be able to count you present, you need to be on camera and I need to see you. So right now, you guys are good. If I can't see you, I can't count you present. If I can see you, but you're doing other things, I can't count you present. It's not just about being on camera, it's about being here. I see this a lot. Yes, you're on camera, but you're on your phone. I've seen people shopping at Walmart during class. Yes, you're on camera, but you're doing other things, folding laundry, tending to, playing with kids. I'm not going to say I've seen it all, because we know what happens as soon as I say that. There'll be something else that I don't see. But if I see you, obviously, if I see you distracted or anything, then I can't count that for your time. Is everybody good with that? Bottom line, 0 distractions. We need you guys here. We need you focused. We need you paying attention so we can get you through that exam next Sunday. The one thing I absolutely will not tolerate is you driving while on this call. If I see you in a moving vehicle, I'll remove you from the call. You're welcome to log back on whenever you get to wherever you're going, but I don't want you to put yourself or others at jeopardy trying to drive and focus on the class and take notes and all that. Is that fair? Is everybody good with that? Commission's really cracking down on that. Questions about the attendance requirements? Post licensing, I like hearing from you guys. I know a couple of you are active. Those of you that are active, have you had your first closing yet? Have we had our first closing yet? Not yet, not yet. You hear me say yet, right? It's coming, so you can, but a couple of you have. A few of you may started working with buyers or sellers. Maybe you started shadowing somebody, maybe somehow. If you're active, you've hopefully done something. If you're inactive, that's okay. That's all right. We'll still get you through this. The thing I like about post licensing is we're a smaller group, first off, and we have more opportunity to share. So I absolutely want to hear from you guys. I honestly don't mind if you want to leave yourself unmuted, as long as I don't have a lot of background noise. If I have a lot of background noise, I find that distracting, and I don't like that. I don't really like distractions. So feel free to comment, feel free to ask questions. The only caveat to this, I will say, is that I reserve the right to keep us on track. So I can't let us get too far off the beaten path, because there is certain material that we need to cover to satisfy the commission's rules. Various resources we're going to use. Your real estate manual. We'll talk about this in just a second. We're in here some. I'm going to introduce you guys to Learn Test Pass in just a second. We're also, since this is the law and rule class, doesn't it make sense? We're going to spend a good amount of time in licensed law and commission rule. And then you have the Relink book, Real Estate Licensing in North Carolina. We'll touch on that just a little bit. Again, we'll look more at Learn Test Pass. Actually, let's do that right now. If we go to the email that you guys got yesterday or the day before from Lane, 2 days ago, whenever Lane sent this email, the email that you guys used to access this class this morning. There's some good information in this email that I just want to make sure that you see. First off, you were asked to sign the contract, the policy and procedure manual for Carolina School of Real Estate. I've got another copy of that for you. I'll show you in just a second where you can access this. That's really important, because that's let's call them the rules and regulations, expectations of the school. So if you have any questions about how we operate, that can be found in that policy and procedure. Learn Test Pass. Did you guys see this? Has anybody signed up, connected to Learn Test Pass yet? A couple of you? Okay, good, good. If you haven't done this yet, please make this a priority this evening. You click on this link to access the Learn Test Pass for this class. And then there's a big red button that says enroll for free. Do we like free? Yeah, we like free. So click on the enroll for free, and then you go through the process to get hooked up to My Learn Test Pass. They've provided a little video tutorial for you here that shows you step by step on how to get yourself signed up. And once you've watched the video tutorial, if you're having any problems, just reach out to Jane and she can help troubleshoot you and work you through. So again, if you have not connected to Learn Test Pass yet, please do so this evening. So you have available the tools and the resources that we're going to use. A couple of things here about Zoom. We don't want you connecting on your smartphone at all. I don't understand how you could take a class on a screen this big. To me, my eyes would hurt by the end of the day. So looks like we're all good on tablets and laptops, but just know that smartphones are not allowed for access. This also reiterates that you need to be on camera at all times, yada, yada, be kind of present. And then the last thing I want to point out, our final exam next Sunday is going to be on a program called ClassMarker. Now we'll talk all about the exam next weekend. It's too early to discuss that right now. But what we do have in this email is a tutorial on ClassMarker. So if you've never taken an exam on ClassMarker, I suggest you watch this tutorial to show you what it's going to look like. And that may alleviate some of the stress for next Sunday, knowing what to expect, knowing what to see. So again, just good information in this email from Lane. Questions on anything? Keep this email. I would even create a folder so you can put this email. I don't know if your inbox looks like mine, but after a couple of days, things start getting pushed down to the bottom of my inbox and then maybe over to page 2. So by next weekend, you may not know where to find this email from Lane to access class. So go ahead and just create a folder, 303 or whatever. And then that way you can get it when you need it. Couple things for those of you that got into Learn Test Pass, or when you get into Learn Test Pass, this is what it's going to look like. We're going to work through some of this stuff together. A lot of it's just available for you for resources to get ready for your exam. This course does follow the syllabus. The Real Estate Commission says if we cover everything in the syllabus and we've covered what we need for your exam, even if it's not an exam topic, the commission still wants us to go over it. So this class was written with the syllabus in my hand. So rest assured, if the commission expects us to cover it, we got you, but it's here for you as well for your reference. Here's that contract you guys signed, the policy and procedure disclosure. So if you, and you don't have to tell me, but if you happen to sign it without reading it, do we ever do that? Just sign something without reading it? Sometimes. If you happen to sign it without reading it, you can always access it here. Again, how the school works, rules, regulations, etc. And then the other two pieces I have here, the welcome section. This is the License Law and Commission Rule comments. I'm going to show you at some point in this class where on the commission's website you can always access the current. In practice, when you're out working with buyers and sellers, it's so important that you're always working with the current information. So if law and rules change, if forms change, you want to make sure you're using the current. So again, I'll show you at some point where you can get that information. And then the other tool that we use is the Real Estate Licensing in North Carolina, also known as the Relink book. So this book starts with, yay, I passed pre-licensing, now what I do. So you guys are about halfway through this book and you're in the section now. We're going to talk about how you can keep your license current, why you don't want it to let it go expired, that kind of thing. So that's the resource for that information.
I'm sorry, Julie, where's that book at?
I'm sorry?
That the Real Estate Licensing in North Carolina, is that the
This is the Relink book. May 21.
Yeah, all I have is the this book. Is that it?
That is License Law and Commission Rules. So I just put this in this morning right before class. So you may want to hit refresh and Learn Test Pass.
Okay, thank you.
That was my last minute. Uh-oh, I got to put that in. So you may
Okay.
have already been in Learn Test Pass, and I hadn't got it yet. So, and to that point, thank you. You try to log out of Learn Test Pass and log back in, because if anything changes, you'll want to, the current, because I add stuff throughout class. If we have a conversation about something, I can just throw it in here, that kind of thing. So log out and log back in so you always have it.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Bookmark this page for Learn Test Pass so you know where to log back in. And you got that email from Lane too. You can click on that link, but if you like to bookmark and find it easier, then you can get it there as well. Okay. We'll go through some of these other sections, but I do want to point out, we have our own folder in Learn Test Pass. So there's a folder down here at the very bottom called Campbell. That's our folder, so various things that we're going to talk about that I couldn't find in the rest of it for some reason. I got my hot little hands on this yesterday. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet. There are going to be some changes to our forms that go into effect July 1st. And yesterday, the North Carolina Association of Realtors released the changes. So one thing that I like, they tell you which forms have changed. So for example, there were some changes to the offer to purchase and contract. And then they go through and they walk you through what changed. So they'll show you there was a change in paragraph 1C, for example, paragraph 1D. Again, I just saw this yesterday. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, so I can't tell you what the changes are. The good news is you're always tested on the current forms. And since this doesn't go into effect until July 1st, we're going to stick with what we have for right now. But I just think this is important to know what's going to happen in July. They give us a couple months to implement the new forms. So your firm, if you're affiliated with a firm, rest assured your firm will work to get you the new forms effective July 1st. They may even offer training about what the changes are. So if you're active with a firm, I suggest you go into training that day and being familiar with the changes. If you're not affiliated, you may want to, you can download anything, everything from Learn Test Pass. So if you're not affiliated yet, you may just want to come up here and download it. And then that way you'll have it available. So when you do affiliate and you do start practicing.
Oh my God. What?
What was that? Is that shocking? The forms? Accidental
Sorry.
unmute. I was like, this is clear your first form change year. You just get prepared for this. It's going to happen every year. Forms change about every year. So I just thought I'd throw this in here. Again, I just saw it yesterday. I hope to look at it next week. I'm not trying to look at it this weekend because, we're busy this weekend. So. And again, we'll go through, but just to point out various things in the different sections. One thing in particular that I like, if I can find it, there's like pre-test. There's a couple test questions in here. Again, helping you get ready for Sunday. Questions or comments on Learn Test Pass on anything so far? Okay. The last thing before we can officially get started. Oh, let me say two things before we get started. I do take a break. We take a 10-minute break on the hour-ish. So about every hour, take 10 minutes. So that's the opportunity that you can respond to your phone, voice messages, emails, text, that kind of thing. That's when you can be on your phone. I do ask that you respect and honor the 10 minutes, knowing that we got a lot to cover and we got a tight time schedule. So 10-minute breaks. We will take a 30-minute lunch break today as well, or each day that we're together as well. So about 12:30, 1 o'clock, we'll all log out for 30 minutes and then take a break, get some lunch, and then we'll be able to come back and finish up the afternoon. I like taking a little later lunch so the afternoons are shorter. Just don't eat too much that you're sleepy and you're struggling to get through the afternoon. I know we're all jacked up on coffee this morning, but afternoon classes tend to be a little bit a little bit different. So light lunch and stay out of the heat so we can keep you awake and alert this afternoon. And then the last thing, you guys all should have a real estate manual. Either you have a book in your hand or you have subscribed to the digital subscription. Either one is fine. I will say I like the digital for a couple reasons. One, it's half the cost of the book. The book's $50, the digital is $25. The digital subscription is $25 for 2 years. The other thing I like about the digital, if they make a change to anything, they can update it in the digital. If they make a change, they can't update the book. You got to get a new book to get the change. So the digital subscription, I would suggest even when you're done with post licensing, still having one or the other, just as a reference. So you always have the current. So we're going to be spending a little bit of time in the manual as well in this class. Again, several different resources, several different places for the information. Okay, how we doing? So far, so good? All right. So let's go ahead. Looks like we're just about ready to get started. And the first big section of this class is just general North Carolina licensing requirements. So we're going to talk about provisional brokers, full brokers, broker and charges. We're going to talk about how firms get licensing, licensing requirements for firms. That's information you guys didn't get in pre-licensing. So that's going to be something new for you. So let's first start discussing. Well, first off, let's see, you guys were all licensed in North Carolina, right? I didn't have anybody that just moved here from another state. You guys all started here, right?
No, I'm from New Jersey.
Were you licensed in New Jersey? And then
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And then you came here. Well, welcome to North Carolina. This is your first, second, or third post, remind me?
This is my third. We just started, well, I just started, I'm counting morning.
Okay.
I just started this week. We had 301 as well.
Okay. Oh goodness. So you're just doing it all at once, huh?
Yeah, I
Bless your
finished.
heart.
Yeah, finished 302. So this week I'm in 301 in your class. 303.
Okay. Good. And when are you done with 301?
301 next Friday.
Wow. See, again, I say, your brain's going to be. So the reason that's important, you didn't have to take pre-licensing here in North Carolina. I don't know the requirements that you had in New Jersey, but you were able to come here. And just FYI for the rest of you, if you have family and friends getting ready to move here, if you're coming to North Carolina with an active license from another state, you pretty much have two choices. You can either come in as a broker. You can come in and not be a broker until you pass the state portion of the exam. So you have to go to PSI Testing Center and pass that state portion. Or you can come in as a provisional broker and take all 3 post-licensing classes. Quite frankly, Lisa, I think you chose wisely, because I think coming in without any kind of class, trying to pass that state portion, those of you that pass the state portion of the exam are sitting here bobbing your head going, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. So I do think that, I know it doesn't matter what I think, but I do think that you chose wisely in coming in as a provisional broker, because now you can affiliate with a firm, you can be active, and you can be getting that post-licensing. And specifically this class about things that are just specific to North Carolina.
Right, I agree.
I've had a couple, and here's the thing. Once you decide you're going to do the state test at PSI or post-licensing, once you make that decision, you can't later change your mind. So I've had a lot of people come in and say they're going to do the state section, the state portion of the exam, and then wish they would have, but they're stuck. They have to go that route. So have you noticed big changes from North Carolina to New Jersey yet?
Have
you?
I have. It's everything is different.
Everything.
Everything.
Sure.
Laws, agency, agency relationships, terms I've never heard before, but I have the, concept of it. I think the biggest agency relationship, this due diligence thing that you guys do down here is
I've heard that from other states. I do what now?
yeah. And I'm so glad when I called and signed up, at first I was signing up for the state. I'm like, oh, I've been in this thing for
How
like
hard can it
25
be?
years. And I'm like, I'm really good with state law or state, that's never my problem. And she said, I truly recommend you take the post licensing. So I went on her recommendation, and then I went back to change because I still thought I had it. She said, oh no, you can't change. I'm like, what do you mean I can't change?
Yeah,
So,
once you're in, you're committed once you decide.
right.
So
So my first day of class with Trish, I was overwhelmed, and I thought like, oh my
bet.
goodness, I was thankful that I changed this, but then I still was uncertain if I would be able to get it because like I just moved here in February.
Okay.
So I have not had any activity at all. And so in trying, there are a lot of times I forgot North Carolina, and I just went back to what I've already known for the last 25 years or so. And I have to remember not to think about New Jersey.
I think that's the biggest challenge, not just for your career, but again, in post licensing, is you got to remember what state you're standing in. You got to remember. And while I welcome stories and everything, I'm going to have to ask that you keep your New Jersey stories to yourself because that confuses us. So let's all agree we're just going to focus on North Carolina. I get questions all the time. How do other states do it? I don't know. What I know is how North Carolina does it, and that's how we're going to do it. Lisa, I'm happy to talk to you outside of class about how New Jersey does it. But but that's one thing that's been a confusion in the past, a source of confusion in the past. And that's the big challenge for you, is keeping those two states separate. Are you doing a New Jersey transaction, or are you doing a North Carolina transaction?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So first section is just general North Carolina licensing requirement. And first off, let's talk about who is a broker. And a broker is just, in this case, going to be defined as any person or entity who does these three things. They perform brokerage activities for compensation for others. Have you guys seen, or do you remember our funnel? The three activities required, all three activities are required. So if any one of these activities is missing, then a license is not required. Let's say, for example, a for sale by owner. A for sale by owner is not doing it for others, are they? They're doing it for themselves. So in North Carolina, does a for sale by owner have to have a license? No, because they're not doing it for others. What about the for compensation or consideration or any promise of? Guys, please don't think that compensation is just money. Compensation, consideration could be anything of value. So while we typically think of being paid a commission, for example, may that be a percentage or a flat fee, it could be anything of value. Let's say you live in one of 4 units in a quadplex, and the owner of the quadplex says, if you manage the other 3 units, I'll let you live here for free. Is free rent some kind of consideration? Heck yeah. Heck yeah. So don't just think of compensation consideration as money. It's anything of value. Again, to have a license in this state, all 3 activities are required. And when we talk about performing brokerage activities, the transfer of real property, we talk specifically about certain activities. If you're listing real estate for sale or rent, or if you're offering to list real estate for sale or rent, any act in connection with listing for sale or rent would be considered a brokerage activity. And this does include trying to solicit listings. This does include saying, I could sell your house. That would require a license. Selling or buying real estate, or offering to sell or buy real estate, assisting a buyer in the transaction. Of course, that includes showing property, communicating offers and acceptance. Brokerage activities if you're leasing or renting or offering to lease or rent. Property management. Anybody in property management or considering property management? Okay, I got a possible. Okay, all right. So usually it's good. It's good. We need good property managers. That might be a niche one day soon because a lot less people are getting into that field. So if that's something you can do, that might definitely be something to consider. We got a whole section for property management in this class. We also got a whole section for commercial. Is anybody in or considering commercial? Couple of you? Okay. Again, commercial is something we didn't get much of in pre-licensing, right? So this will be a good opportunity, at least to have those resources available, more information for property management, commercial. We'll see more of that. So listing, selling or buying, listing or renting real estate auctions. If you're going to conduct an auction, a license is required, a real estate auction. Anybody going the auctioneer route? No, I would love to have an auctioneer in my class one day. The mere crier of the auction, the person that stands there and does the actual auctioning and the bidding and everything, they're not required to have a license, but the auctioneer that's contracted with the owner is required to have a license. Brokerage activities. If you're selling, buying, leasing, assigning, or exchanging any interest in connection with the sale or purchase of a business. Here, we're kind of just referring to that negotiations. If you're going to help others negotiate their property to buy or sell or lease, we need a license. And the last thing is referring a party. We can't give referral fees to unlicensed persons. And that's going to be tough because one day your neighbor is going to come up to you and your neighbor is going to say, hey, I have a cousin that needs to sell a $1 million home and they want to use that money to buy a $2 million home. Can you help them? You're going to say, yeah, I can help them. But because your neighbor is unlicensed, you can't offer them a referral fee. You can't, all you can do is say, wow, thank you very much for this business that equates to $3 million. I appreciate that. You guys with me? And I know that gets tough because your neighbor's thinking they're going to get something out of this. So we need to know that we cannot pay that referral fee if they don't have a license. We can look up any licensees. Let me rephrase that. We can look up any active licensee in the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. And I believe, we'll look at this in just a second, but I believe they now also show inactive. But in order to be paid a referral fee, they have to have an active license. And before you pay anybody, you can go to the commission's website and verify that that license is on active status. I think easier for the brokerage activities, what brokerage activities require a license? If you can remember LL Beans, list, lease, buy, exchange, auction, negotiate, and sell. That kind of sums up those brokerage activities. List, lease, buy, exchange, auction, negotiate, and sell. LL Beans. By the way, I should have said this earlier. I'm going to go back for 1 second. I'll come back to where we are. You notice down here in the bottom corner, I have a reference to, in this case, this is the license law. North Carolina General Statute is license law. We're going to see commission rule as well. This information is just down here for a reference. You do not need to know this for your test, but it's just a reference. If you want more information, then you have that license law in this case available to you. Yes, did I hear a question? Okay. There are some people that are exempt. Not everybody has to have a license. So we're going to go through these pretty quickly. And please understand these exemptions, there's no such thing as an exemption for a limited number of transactions. You can't have an unlicensed person say, well, I'm exempt from a license because I'm just going to help one person one time. If you want to help one person one time, buy, sell, lease, exchange, negotiate, auction, or sell, then you have to get a license. So there is no exemption for a limited number of transactions. People that are exempt, any business entity that's buying or selling property owned by the business entity. Again, they're not doing it for others, they're doing it for themselves. So they're still a for sale by owner, they're just a business for sale by owner, not an individual, not a personal for sale by owner. An attorney, in fact, is somebody that is active with the North Carolina Bar Association. Our closing attorneys that we use to handle our transactions are attorney, in fact, and they don't have to have a license for contract performance. In other words, our closing attorneys don't have to have a real estate license to do their job as the closing attorney to assist our buyers and sellers to transfer the deed. What if the attorney, in fact, wanted to help their cousin buy or sell a house? Now they need a license, right? Because they're stepping outside of their law firm. They're stepping outside of their legal closing attorney obligations. So as long as they're just doing closing attorney jobs, they don't need a license. An attorney at law, I'm sorry, attorney, I got that backwards. Apologize. What I was just talking about was the attorney at law. The attorney, in fact, sorry about that, would be somebody that has full power of attorney. So if you have full power of attorney over a parent, for example, maybe an adult child, then you wouldn't need a license because you've been given permission to act on their behalf. The attorney at law is our closing attorneys. Anybody that the court appoints to assist in the transaction, maybe a trustee, a guardian, an executor of a will, they would be exempt from a license. Trustees are going to be exempt. You know, North Carolina is a third party state. So we use the lender, the borrower, and the third party is the trustee. The trustee is allowed to handle the affairs on behalf of the attorney. So in the event you stop making your mortgage payments, in the event you face foreclosure, the trustee is going to take over and start the foreclosure process through the power of sale. So the trustee is typically an attorney. And as long as they're acting in that capacity, they're not required to have a real estate license. W-2 employees of property managers are not required. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about this in just a second. So hang on to that for just a second. Individual property owners are for sale by owners, are FRBOs, for rent by owners. VRBOs, vacation rent by owner. There's all these little acronyms out there for by owners. They're not required to have a license because they're not doing it for themselves or doing it for others. They're doing it for themselves. And then any property, any employees of the housing authority, as long as they're dealing with property owned by the housing authority. So let's talk a little bit more about our W-2 employees of property managers. There are allowable and unallowable activities of any unlicensed employee. Those of you that are with a firm, you very well may have an unlicensed staff. It's not uncommon to see unlicensed people and property managers. Whomever their employing broker is just needs to be aware there are certain things that they can or cannot do. So specifically, the employees of property managers, they can show property for rent. Please note, any unlicensed employee cannot show property for sale. Okay, if you're showing property for sale, you have to have a license. So employees of property managers can show property for rent. They can provide leasing information. They can accept applications. They can assist in data entry, completing pre-printed forms, for example, advertising and promotions, as long as the information provided to them comes from their employing property manager. And they can accept security deposits, they can accept rent, they can maintain the trust account. We're going to talk all about the trust account in this class in just a little bit as well. So they can be a big help. The big thing that the employee of the property manager can't do, they can't negotiate. They can't negotiate terms for rent or security deposit with the potential tenant. They can't negotiate lease terms. And they cannot negotiate those property management agreements with the owner of the property. That's all up to the property manager. So again, the unlicensed employee can do data entry only. So they can fill in the blanks of the pre-printed forms as long as that information was provided to them by their property manager. Questions on that? Okay. I would like you guys to pull your chat back up if you've lost it. And instead of sending a chat to everyone, I would like you to send a chat just to me. I believe we have two options. Send to everyone or send to me. Is that right? I just played around with my Zoom settings recently. So if something doesn't work right, I need to figure. That's the problem with playing with those settings. Everybody have a chat set just to me? So we're going to play a little game. Y'all want to play a little game? I feel like a game show host here. Let's play a little game. Which activity requires a license? 1, 2, and 3. You guys tell me in a private chat, which activities do you think require a license? And I'll give you a hint. There might be more than one right answer. I think I've heard from everybody. 3. Yep. So, we've heard from everybody. So let's go through these. Which requires a license? An employee of an entity owner who shows and negotiates contracts for the sale or lease of property owned by the entity. What are the key words here? The employee is handling property that the entity owns. So do they need a license? Which activities require a license? They do. Why? What's the other key word here? Negotiates. If they weren't negotiating, they wouldn't need a license. So do they need a license? Yes. A property owner who sells or leases the property, they're doing it for who? They're doing it for themselves. So as long as they're doing it for themselves, a license is not required. And then we have an attorney who helps a friend find and purchase a home for a fee. Does that attorney need a license? Yes, because they're stepping outside of their closing attorney responsibilities. So we were looking for the first one and the third one require a license. Questions on that? Okay, well, that was fun. Let's play again. Tell me again, which one requires a license? think I heard from, I want to make sure I hear from everybody. So I think I've heard from everybody again. So who requires a license? Well, let's see. An adult child who lives rent-free in half of the duplex owned by the parents in exchange for finding tenants, collecting rent, maintaining the properties. We said earlier, is rent some form of consideration? In this market, you betcha. Is a tank of gas some sort of consideration? Yeah. So anything of value, anything of consideration, even though this is the adult child's parents that own it, and they may be the next of kin, they don't own the property yet, right? The parents are still on the deed. The parents are still the owner of record. So the first activity would require a license. A broker's W-2 employee leasing property managed by the broker, as long as they're not negotiating. That's going to be my caveat. So as long as they're not negotiating, they can answer the phone, they can answer questions, they can go out and show rental properties. They can pretty much do anything but negotiate the terms of the lease. So as long as they're not negotiating, then they would not need a license. And then the third one, referring a buyer to a seller who pays you. Again, that's that neighbor that's offering you $3 million in business. And pretty much all you can do is say, thank you. We can't offer them any kind of referral fee, bird finder fee. Maybe you could take them out to lunch, you know, but technically all we can do is say, thank you, even though they might be expecting something. And you're going to get that a lot, by the way, if you haven't already. Family and friends are going to introduce you to somebody and assume that you can pay them for that. So that's part of why we need to make sure that we're good. Guys, remember, North Carolina Real Estate Commission regulates us, the licensee. They can't regulate the unlicensed person. Make sense? Questions on this? Questions so far?
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
I think when you speak about the consideration and you were saying that the seller could take the neighbor out for lunch. Like, isn't lunch considered a consideration? Or even if you give them flowers or like a $25 gift card?
There's something called a nominal fee. We're allowed to do nominal fees, and they define a nominal fee under $50. So as long as your lunch and flowers is $49.99 or less, I wouldn't promote that. I wouldn't advertise that, you know. Send me your coworkers and I'll take you to lunch. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that would be considered nominal.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Well, I'm out of coffee and it's 10 o'clock. So I say we're ready for our first break. I got 10 o'clock. So let's all go. We'll take a break until 10:10. You are welcome to turn your camera off. We don't really want to see where you go and what you do for break. So you're welcome to turn your camera off. Just come back at 10:10 and turn it back on and we'll pick back up and get started. We all get our refill. What's your morning vice? Mine's, I drink my coffee. If it's spoon could stand up straight in it, if it is. That's me. Nobody does anything crazy like Jolt Cola or anything, do you? No. My husband's one of those weird people that says it's too hot to drink coffee. And I don't understand. I mean, he eats ice cream in the wintertime. So I don't understand. I don't know what that means. It's too hot to drink coffee. I don't get that. But he'll probably have a cup this morning when he wakes up and smells it. All right. So if we're back, Lisa, if you're back, your camera's not on. I know sometimes we forget to do that. If you're never not sure, I think it depends from your end on Zoom. It depends on how you view. So can you guys see everybody else right now, or do you just see like one person talking? However you have that set up. But I always think if you can't see yourself, it's hard to know if your camera's on or not, right? So one way you can tell for sure is to look at your device, and if you see the little light, then you know that your camera's on. Okay. So let's go. Switch gears just a bit. We've talked about brokerage activities, the funnel, the 3 activities: transfer real property for others for some sort of compensation requires a license. We talked about who is exempt from having a license. So let's switch gears just a bit. And let's talk about the different license categories. So we're going to break down, for example, provisional broker, broker in charge, and full broker. So before we go into this, let me throw a poll at you guys. So if you'll look at your screen, I'm getting ready to throw a poll question at you, which means nobody can see your response. You're the only one that knows how you respond. So in North Carolina, there's only one type of license. Is that true or false? One type of license in North Carolina. Oh, it's 50-50. Everybody weigh in? Can I end it? So this is an interesting question, clearly, because we are divided on this question, aren't we? We got a 50-50 response. The truth is in North Carolina, there is only a broker license. In North Carolina, we are all brokers. What makes us different is the classification of our license. So technically, there's only one license category. We are a broker state. Other states, for example, I'm not sure what New Jersey does, but other states, you may have a sales associate license. And then from your sales associate license, you can, as I understand, later graduate to a broker license. Those would be 2 different license categories. Again, I don't know exactly what states those apply to. Is that New Jersey?
Yeah, so we have a salesperson license, then we have a broker salesperson. Yeah, 2. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. So I think just in talking to other people from other states, I think North Carolina is really rare on this. I think a lot of states have several different categories, but in North Carolina, we just have one. We're all a broker. It's just what classification of broker that you are. Everybody good with that? We're a broker state. Okay. North Carolina. We like to keep you guys on your toes. So we're going to, keep things interesting and different from everybody else. I've heard that a lot, that and as Lisa just proved, North Carolina is just different. So here we are. It's our great state. I've also heard when all the states real estate commission educator departments get together for their annual conference, North Carolina takes great pride in the extent and the degree and the toughness of their state exam. They love standing up in front of other states and saying, our exam is hard. And I understand that those conferences, they take great pride. So again, when I say congratulations to you guys for making it this far, understand in North Carolina, that was not an easy task. So if you ever want to get licensed in another state, you might have an easier job, an easier place. So let's talk about the different not the categories, but the different levels of broker. So the first level is the provisional broker. This is you guys. You guys are PBs, provisional brokers. I call you my brokers with training wheels. As a provisional broker, you cannot perform brokerage activities unless what? What's the one thing you have to do to be able to perform brokerage activities?
Supervise.
Say it. I
Be
didn't hear you.
Be supervised by BIC, I think is what Keith was saying, or somebody.
Yes, yes, supervised. Thank you. You have to be supervised. You have to be affiliated with a firm. In other words, as a provisional broker, you have got to be affiliated with a firm in order to do brokerage activities. That's the only way, and you have to have an active license. So that's why I asked when we first started class, how many of you are inactive and how many of you are active, because that tells me basically whether or not you're affiliated or not. So if you're active, if you're telling me you're active, then you also have to be attached to a firm. You have to be associated with a firm. We'll talk about the different license categories in just a bit. But again, as a PB, you're an entry level. So you just got your license, yay, but they're going to put you on provisional status. And they're going to keep you on provisional status until you complete your post-licensing classes. How long do we have to complete post-licensing from the date of licensure? I see your guys' mouth move. You have 18 months from when you got your license, or when you came back into post licenses. Keith, did they give you a timeline? Did they tell you you had a certain time frame to do it? I'm just curious.
I think initially it was 18 months and that lapsed. And then after that, then I think a year or two ago, I got the contracts post licensing, and then I'm gonna knock this one out, and then the next one I may have to take the contracts over. I don't know. It might be up in the air, but
I would call them, because I want to say that unfortunately that might be right. If you don't do all three within 18 months, I want to say you may have to go back. Now, I'm not the commission,
right.
so I'm not saying that for sure, but I would definitely reach out to them to make sure. It used to be, probably Keith, back in the day when you took pre-licensing, it used to be we had 3 years. You guys had 3 years to take post-licensing. But the truth is hopefully 3 years into it, your career is off and running and you're busy working with buyers and sellers and you're not really thinking about post-licensing. I mean, if you're 3 years into it and you're still trying to get this post-licensing class, then I fear what kind of disservice you might have done to your buyers and sellers up to this point until you get this further education. So quite frankly, they went to 18 months a couple of years ago. It was either 2019 or 2020, something like that. And when they went to 18 months, the feedback they got from around the state was, why not 12? You know, because the sooner we can get you guys through post-licensing, the sooner you can drop your provisional status, the less liability you are to your firm and your broker in charge. But you can just put it behind you. So I hope you're not close to your 18 months. If you are, please, please, please watch your time, because as we just said, I'm pretty sure, well, for you guys, if you miss your 18 months, you will be inactive until you get it complete. So even if you're smack dab in the middle of a transaction, your 18 months expires, you go inactive and you're not going to be able to finish that transaction. Unfortunately, you won't be able to get paid. We're going to talk about compensation and how everybody gets paid in this class in just a bit. One of the important things about the provisional broker is that you guys can't receive compensation from anyone other than your supervising BIC or BICs. There is an opportunity for provisional broker to be affiliated or to be under 2 BICs. Again, that's a fairly new rule. If you affiliate with a firm and then join a team, and that team has a broker in charge, as a provisional broker, that's the only option that you could have 2 BICs. You would have the team BIC and you would have the firm BIC. And the caveat to that is both of those BICs have to be under the same roof. So your team BIC and your firm BIC are both under the same roof. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the only time as a provisional broker that you could have two BICs. And again, that's a fairly new rule. I believe we'll see that again in just a bit. Who pays you? Does the team pay you or does the firm pay you? That's up to them. That's up to however the team was laid under the firm and how that was created. We're actually going to talk about teams in just a bit too. Are any of you active on a team or considering a team? A couple of you? Good, good. So we'll talk a little bit more about teams. Yeah. No, okay. FYI, again, we'll see this too. This used to be only compensated from anyone other than your supervising BIC. This used to be strictly 2 PBs, but last year it changed to everybody. So now the full broker can only be paid by their BIC. And again, we'll talk more about compensation and how everybody gets paid a little bit later in this class. So you guys, the day you pass your state exam, they sent you a real estate license. Congratulations. Here's your license. Good job. It's on inactive status, which means you can't do anything. Yay. Was that a good feeling? Here's a piece of paper that you can't do anything with. How do you do something with that piece of paper? Well, as we said, you have to affiliate with a firm as a provisional broker to be active. And then to remove that provisional status, you just have to complete the 90 hours of post-licensing. You don't have to do these classes in any particular order, 301, 302, and 303. You just got to complete them within that 18 months. So the 90 hours for post-licensing education, break it down into 3 different classes. And you know, the thing that's interesting about post-licensing, you know, 301 is brokerage relationships and responsibilities, which is just a fancy term for agency agreements. 302 is contracts and closings. You're going to go through the offer to purchase and contract quite thoroughly, get in more detail about how to understand and review a closing disclosure. And then North Carolina law and rule. And you might remember from pre-licensing that agency and contracts and license law and commission rule were heavily tested topics. So now here we are taking those heavily tested topics and expanding on them, getting you that further information. That rule from 3 months to 18 months, yeah, that was 2020. So let's see, it's 2022. So we're probably, this was important because why this was important in 2020 is because there was no grandfather period. On July 1st, all provisional brokers had to complete within 18 months of licensure. So it wasn't those licensed before this date and those licensed after that date. So this slide will probably go away soon because we're 2 years into it. So now all of you know that you need to have 18 months. There is no question anymore. So as a provisional broker, how do you keep an active status? Well, you have to renew your license annually. We are currently in the throes of the renewal period, May 15th to June 30th. We'll talk more about that period. Does anybody just get their real estate license after June 1st of this year? Has anybody been licensed after? So all of you were licensed before June 1st. Yes? Okay. Have you guys renewed your license? Have you submitted the $45? Heads bobbing, yes. Good, 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 good. You guys are good. You may or may not have to take CE this year. Well, let me rephrase that. You may or may not have had to take CE by June 10th, but you need to renew your license. So if you've not submitted your $45 yet, please do so. Your deadline is 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. As we said, provisional broker to be active, they have to affiliate with a BIC. They have to have a BIC, take them under their wing. Another thing we're going to talk about in this class a little later on is the disciplinary process, what happens when you get in trouble with the real estate commission. And we're going to learn that the broker in charge is responsible for everything that the provisional broker does. So if the provisional broker gets in trouble with the commission, the BIC's going to get a letter too. If the full broker gets in trouble with the commission, it depends if the BIC will get a letter as well. Again, we'll talk more about that disciplinary action. To stay active, make sure you timely complete post-licensing. Again, if you miss your 18 months, then your license goes inactive until you get all post complete. And then once you're past your first renewal period, whenever you got your license, the first time you hit June 30th, that's your first renewal period. You don't have to do CE that year. You do have to do CE your second renewal period and going forward for as long as you want a real estate career, an active license in real estate. Any questions on that? Again, CE season's over. So if you needed CE and you didn't take CE, we'll talk about what happens next. We'll get there. As long as everybody's renewed. So you drop that provisional status, you knock off your training wheels, and you're just a broker. Full broker status, also known as non-provisional status. How do you keep your license once you're a full broker? You have to renew every year, May 15th to June 30th. And to be active, you have to complete CE each year after your second year. We'll talk a little bit more about this. As a full broker, you have options. You can affiliate with a firm as a full broker. You can hang your license under a firm and have a broker in charge. You could go out on your own. We're going to talk about sole proprietors, when you need a firm, when you need a BIC. Anybody thinking about going out on their own one day? Or is that too far down the road? Maybe two. Yeah, somewhere down the road. So we need to get you a little bit of experience first. We'll talk about being BIC eligible, how you can create your firm. You may choose to be a sole proprietor, just your different options. If you're a full broker, you're active, but you don't have a BIC. You don't have a designation. You haven't designated yourself, or you're not affiliated with a BIC. Then there's certain things you can and cannot do. And one of those would be advertising yourself as a broker. Again, we're going to talk about the sole proprietor in just a second. So let's say, for example, you guys are provisional brokers. And let's say you find out on July 1st, you're all affiliated with the same firm. You all work for ABC Realty. And you find out on July 1st that the firm or the BIC of ABC Realty forgot to renew. Oopsie, we forgot to renew. The firm or the BIC's license goes inactive or expired, depending. What happens to your license as a provisional broker? If your BIC's license goes inactive, what happens to yours?
I'm going to say it becomes inactive as well.
It goes inactive as well as a PB, right? Because you're not affiliated with anybody.
Correct.
As a full broker, you can still maintain an active license. Now your license in the commission's eyes is being held at home, and how you conduct, how you continue your services is going to depend on whether or not you've created a firm, you've designated yourself as broker in charge of your firm, etc. Again, that's more that we're going to talk about in just a minute. Have your BICs been on you yet about renewing your license? Have they talked about it in sales meeting? And are you kind of tired of hearing about it? I mean, get used to it. This is renewal period. So mine was emailing us on May 15th. Don't forget to renew. I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. If I do it now, will you leave me alone for the next 45 days? So as soon as you renew, you can get them off your back. But it may not be a bad idea for you guys to make sure your BIC has renewed their license as well, especially you guys. Because if your BIC or your firm forgets to renew, then you guys are inactive until you find somebody else enough to affiliate with. How do you become BIC? You become BIC by first getting BIC eligible status. Once you get BIC eligible status, then you are eligible to become the designated broker in charge. So there's certain criteria to become BIC eligible. You have to have an active license. You can't have a provisional broker license to become a broker in charge. Doesn't that make sense? So you've had to have your provisional status removed. You have to have some experience. And this is what I meant by you guys aren't there yet, probably yet. 2 years of full-time experience within the last 5 years, or 4 years part-time within the last 5 years. Truth be told, I have no idea how they differentiate between full-time and part-time. I don't know the answer to that question, but they do. The point is they do want to make sure that you have experience. You have to submit a form. There's a submission form. We're going to look at that in just a second. And then there's a 12-hour broker in charge course that the Real Estate Commission provides. So once you do these activities, you are BIC eligible. Once you're BIC eligible, you can become the designated broker in charge. Anybody want to be the designated BIC one day? Anybody want to be the boss one day? Good, good. Of your own firm. That's right. Because you're the one that wanted your own firm. So that would make sense that you want to be you want to be the BIC one day. So good. You know, again, there's some responsibilities with that. We're going to talk about that in just a second.
Just to confirm, Julie, the
Yes.
2 years of the full-time brokerage experience doesn't have to be in North Carolina, correct?
I want to say it does not. However, I may want you to verify that because I'm not 100% sure. I want to say experience is experience.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to confirm. I
Yeah,
believe that's what I was told.
So you and I are
Mhm.
thinking the same thing here.
Yeah.
But I, you know, because I mean, sales is sales, right? Whether you're selling here or there or whatever, sales is sales. And that's what they want, that they just want you to have some field experience, some legwork, working with buyers and sellers.
Okay.
Some agents become BIC eligible and never have the desire to become the designated broker in charge. So some point in your career, why may you consider this? Well, you know, a lot of firms like having BIC eligible agents laying around in case the designated BIC doesn't show up for work that day or something happens to them. Then they got BIC eligibles laying around that they can slide somebody in that position real quick and keep the show going. I will never forget a couple years ago, several years ago now, I was an admin. And the school that our broker in charge attended forgot to submit their CE credit. So on July 1st, we got the notice saying your broker in charge is inactive. You know, heart fluttered a little bit. You know, I was about ready to beef up my resume thinking I had to go work somewhere else, you know. But they had some BIC eligible agents laying around that they were able to slide into that role to satisfy the commission so we could keep our doors open until we got that straightened out. You may want to do it for your advertising, for your promotions, for your personal marketing. Your accountant may suggest that you have become BIC eligible just for various reasons. I don't think there's any tax benefits. But the point is that some agents become BIC eligible and never go on to be the designated broker in charge. You could ride for the rest of your life on BIC eligible status and never become the designated broker in charge.
So the 12-hour course is a one-time, it's not an annual or biannual, or I mean, you just take it one time and then you
Yep.
can be eligible
Yep.
for the 15,
That's right.
20. Okay.
Yep. So after this, and we'll talk about CE, but you have a different update course. The BIC has a different update course than the PB and the full broker. But yeah, you would just have to do your BIC update course. So yeah, it's just a 12-hour course. I believe, again, don't hold me to this because things change. I believe the BIC course is now, let's see, we're synchronous, so they would be asynchronous. Asynchronous learning is pretty much self-paced. We're synchronous learning, which means we're only separated by distance. We're all here at the same time. Asynchronous, you log on at your own time. Self-paced. Again, you can find, we're getting ready to go. As a matter of fact, let's go check out the commission's website and you can find information on that there. If you're not familiar with the Real Estate Commission's website, I do suggest that you get familiar with it. This is a great resource. This is a great tool for all of us. Who can remind me what the Real Estate Commission's main purpose is? Oh, there it is. Do you guys see that? How timely was that? Real Estate Commission's main purpose. They serve lots of purposes. But their main purpose, yep. Their main purpose is to protect the public. Protect the public from who? Me and you. Making sure that we are properly handling their transaction. So part of the Real Estate Commission's website is to help educate the public. A lot of this information is free, it's included, and it can help get the public the information they need. It also helps me and you as well, and it's a plethora of information. We're going to spend some time in here through this class. I just want to point out a few things real quick before we get started. If you're interested in the electronic manual, if you don't want this big clunky book, and you can go under publications, and here's the electronic real estate manual. Again, it's $25 for a 2-year subscription. There's also a resources tab. No, I'm sorry, still under publications. Publications. This is probably where I come the most often when I'm visiting the Real Estate Commission's website. Various disclosure forms, guides for the public, Q&A brochures. Man, I love these Q&A brochures. Why recreate the wheel? The Real Estate Commission has provided this, and you can either download it as a PDF or you can purchase like the nice glossy. So when you're talking to your buyers, for example, about due diligence, why recreate the wheel? Here's the information you can use to help you discuss it with your buyers. Don't read it to them, they can read it, but use it as a tool to help you. Earnest money deposits, fair housing, home inspections. Do you think a lot of first-time home buyers have questions on home inspections? And here's a nice Q&A brochure. So just know, I mean, again, this is where I'm at most of the time. Residential subdivisions, tenant security deposit, test your well water. This was the most recent. This one came out, I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that. Update topics. This is a good link for previous CE classes. If you want more on agency contracts, whatever. That's one thing I noticed about CE over the years is some of these topics in pre-licensing creep back up in CE every once in a while, because sometimes we need the refresher. Sometimes we need to be reminded. So publications is a great place, I think, to start just for resources and information. What we're going to look at right now, we're going to look at a few things. And one thing we're going to focus on first, the Real Estate Commission provides a video library. And I was told that these videos were getting revamped and new videos will be released by the end of June. So we're about halfway through June. Are you guys there? Did I lose you?
We're here.
Okay. All right. I thought I was lagging for a second. I want to make sure I didn't lose anybody. So these videos are getting revamped. They said by the end of June. I just looked yesterday and they hadn't revamped yet, but I think it's good that they keep it current, especially as laws and rules change. And one thing we're going to look at, we're going to go in the 4 brokers videos. You can see you got your working with real estate agents. Let me let this load. It almost always takes a second. We're gonna watch some of these videos in this class. These are new. They've already loaded those. And the first one that we are gonna watch is once they load. Hang on, I need to stop sharing just for 1 second. Don't go anywhere, hang tight. Okay, they've changed the names on me. All right, let me come back and get you guys. Okay, so under the broker tab, we have how to complete form 2.25. This is the commission form on becoming BIC eligible. And once you're BIC eligible, becoming BIC designation. So let's watch this first video and you guys give me a thumbs up that you can hear it.
Good morning, Betty Biggs. Are you ready to complete Form 2.25 and request BIC eligible status and the BIC designation? Great, let's get started. First, go to www.ncrec.gov. Choose Forms from the menu options. Then open the Licensee Forms drop-down menu and click on the Request for BIC eligible status and/or BIC designation Form 2.25. The shaded box at the top of the page provides a review of the requirements for becoming BIC eligible, the expected response time, and the required steps to regain BIC eligible status if you had it in the past and lost it. Scroll down to the section titled Broker Information. Here you will enter your name, license number, and contact information, and whether or not you have ever been convicted of any criminal offense or subject to another licensing board's disciplinary action. If you answer yes and you have not previously reported the incident to the Commission, then you will be asked to complete and submit Form 2.09 as well. If you have previously submitted the incident information, then there is no additional action required. The next section of the form asks if you currently hold BIC eligible status. If you hold BIC eligible status, answer yes and move on to the next section. If you do not, your no will trigger a question about the criteria upon which you are applying for BIC eligible status. You will need to provide information about your employment history. If you need to document multiple places of employment, you will need to create a separate file and upload the document here. The next section asks if you would like to be designated as broker in charge. If you answer no, you will go directly to the certification section. Answering yes, however, will trigger a series of questions about where you will be broker in charge, starting with the name of the firm or sole proprietorship. Next, you will be asked if this is a sole proprietorship. If you choose no, then you will be asked to provide a firm license number. If your firm does not yet have a firm license, you will be directed to the firm application, Form 1.72, and will not be allowed to proceed further in this process. If you have a firm license, or if you are requesting designation as BIC of a sole proprietorship, you will then be asked if this is a new office location. If the answer is yes, then you will need to provide all of the contact information for that location. If this is not a new location, then you will be asked for the name and license number of the BIC you will be replacing. Once you have provided the required information, you will be asked to certify that the information is correct, and if you are requesting BIC designation for an existing firm, that you have the qualifying broker's permission to request the designation. If all of this is true, type your name where it says Signature Required, check the box where it says I am not a robot, and click Submit. You will receive an email confirming that your submission has been received. Good work, Betty! Once your form is processed, you will have BIC eligible status and/or be designated as BIC. Remember, you must take the 12-hour Broker in Charge course in the next 120 days if you haven't taken it in the last 12 months. If you have any questions about completing this form, or if you need assistance along the way, please contact License Services at 919-875-3700, and someone will be happy to assist you.
So it seems like there are quite a few steps, which is why they provide the video tutorial. So again, if BIC eligible, designated BIC is the route you're planning on going, I would suggest just kind of making a note to come back here, making sure that you're looking at the current stuff when you reach that point. Submission form may change by the time you're ready, who knows, but you know you can always find the current information here on the website. The form that they mentioned, Form 2.25, again, when you go under Forms, the tabs at the top here, and we have licensee forms, and here is our 2.25. So again, if BIC eligible, designated BIC is something you're thinking about doing one day, you may just want to jot down 2.25 because you know that's where you're going to head. And this is the form that they were referring to. It's all online now, no paper, no mail, snail mail, anything like that. There was something said in the video, I just wanted to make sure that we heard. They will allow a full broker to move into a designated broker in charge role and then go back and take the BIC course, but they have to do so within, they say 120 days of becoming designated. So most of the time you become BIC eligible. Once you're BIC eligible, you're positioned to be the designated broker in charge, but just know they will allow you to become designated BIC, but you have 120 days to go back and take that 12-hour BIC course, as long as you meet the other criteria. Questions or comments? Form 2.25?
I have a quick question.
Yes, yes.
So to be BIC eligible, you have to do all of that. Do you have to take the 12-hour course, or is that just if you want to be the designated broker in charge?
No, to be BIC eligible, you'd have to do the 12-hour course.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And then once you're BIC eligible or designated BIC, then like we said, you have your own, you have a different update course than the rest of us. Yep. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did my BIC eligible. I think I did it 2020 because I was bored and I need something to do. And back in the day when I did it, it was part online, it was part asynchronous and part synchronous. I think they just revamped that. And like I said, it's all asynchronous now, but you go through, you know, the little sections and take the tests at each and got to get so many right and, you know, yada, yada, yada.
I have a question about a firm establishing, I guess your own firm. Or will we cover that in this section?
We're going to cover that. So jot your question down. And if we don't specifically cover that when we get to that, then we'll absolutely address it to the best that I can.
Okay.
So yep, we'll get to firm licensing. Thank you. The other thing I kind of want to point out, a couple other things about the commission site while we're here before we go back. I tell you guys, their search bar is pretty intuitive. Have you ever searched for something and got results for anything other than what you were searching for? The commission's website they're on point. So even if, you know, 2 years from now, you don't remember, if you just search BIC eligible, it's going to bring this stuff up. It's on point. It's a good search bar. And the other thing I mentioned earlier, I would show you guys. So I want to make sure the homepage always has just good current information. Here's a reminder that our license is expiring at the end of June unless we renew it. I mean, they give you a countdown clock and everything, place to renew your license. Now that you guys are all licensed, you have a licensee login on the homepage. Did you know that? If this is new information, go to the homepage, do your licensee login. You'll use your license number and the last 4 digits of your social. Every single time you take a post licensing class and a CE class, you want to make sure about a week after it's over, you want to come here, log on and make sure that it is posted so you can get credit for it. But give it about a week, but make sure that your post in CE is posted. You can also renew your license here as well. The other thing, here's our current, right here on the homepage, easy to access. You can always access the current license law and commission rule. So that booklet that we had in Learn, Test, Pass, that's gonna expire at some point, but no, you always have that current here on the homepage. And then I find this interesting, any upcoming changes, these are the approved rule changes effective July 1st. This is not the forms change. These are the rule changes. So what are the changes we can expect to see on July 1st? They're right here available to you on the website as well. Prior to saying approved, it said proposed. So even when these rule changes were a proposal, were on the discussion for the table, they still made that available to the public. I'll go ahead and tell you there are no rule changes that are going to affect the majority of us. Most of the rule changes this year revolve around timeshares. So is anybody in the timeshare community? Yeah, I haven't met one of you either. So I'd love to meet somebody working in a timeshare. I'd pick their brain. But those were the biggest changes made this year that we can expect to see on July 1st. So again, just make sure I would be very familiar with the website. Use it, let it help you. You know, back in my administrative days, I did new agent orientation. So I got you guys, once you got your license and affiliated with a firm. And probably one of the biggest questions I got from new agents was, I don't know what to say. how do I know what to say when I look at a buyer or seller? And my answer was always, let the forms help put words in your mouth. The information that we need to say is there if we're familiar with it. Again, don't sit down and read to your buyers and sellers. They don't want that. But you can use the forms to help you form those words when you're explaining due diligence, earnest money, for example, dual agency. Use the forms to help you out. So how we become BIC eligible. The broker in charge maintains their license. Again, we all have to renew. Everybody's renewing right now. The individuals, firms, real estate schools, instructors, everybody has to renew everything between May 15th and June 30th. The broker in charge's update course. There's 2 CE classes, and we'll talk about CE. There's an update and there's an elective. PBs and brokers take the general update. The BIC takes the broker in charge update, also known as the BIC up. And then the other CE class is your elective, again, of choice. So once you're BIC eligible, again, you could ride for the rest of your life on BIC eligible status, as long as you maintain an active license. If for any reason you lose BIC eligible status, you have got to start over and take the 12-hour BIC course again. So if you forget to renew, or if you don't take the right update course, or if you just let it lapse for whatever reason, if you lose your BIC eligible status for any reason, you got to start the BIC eligible process over again, take that 12 hours. That's still better than have to take pre-licensing again, right? You don't have to go the whole way back to the beginning, just part of the way back. So let's talk about Jake. Broker Jake completes a general update and a 4-hour elective on March 13th. On April 3rd, he submits his request for BIC eligible status and his BIC designation to the commission. It's processed on April 10th of 2021. So let's talk about what Jake needs to do by June 10th. Jake, as a full broker, did his general update on March 13th. Everybody with me? After he did his general update, then he became BIC eligible. Because he had already satisfied his update criteria for the year, Jake CE is finished. So Jake's doesn't have to go back and take BIC up after April 10th, right? Because he's already done his update prior to being BIC eligible. Everybody with me? So you only have to do one update course a year. And the confusion that goes down the commission is, of course, the year that you become BIC eligible. Which update do I need? And the answer is, have you already done your update or not? What if Jake had not done his gen up in March? He becomes BIC eligible on April 10th. Now, which update does he have to do by June 10th? You guys are cute. I can see your mouths move. Yep. Now he's got to do the BIC up, right? One update course a year. You take whatever update course you are when you sign up for it. Does that, everybody good with that? Because he already did it though, he satisfied that. Now next year he'll have to do the BIC up. But again, if he hadn't done gen up, the general update, and of course he still needs an elective. Questions on that?
Got it.
So the answer to this one is, does Jake need the BIC up by June 10th? Not June 10th, 2021. He'll have to do it next year. I think when I did my BIC eligible, it was like in June. And I mean, the poor commission, there were questions flying all over the place. It was like June 8th or something. They're like, oh my God, what did I do? If you've already done your gen up, you're fine for this year. They're not going to make you do more than one update a year, I guess is the trick to remember that. Now let's talk about April. April submits a request for a BIC eligible status. That form 2.25, it's processed on April 25th. April has not done her CE yet. So in April's scenario, which update does she need to do this year? And you guys can unmute or tell me in a chat or whatever you like. Yep. 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 So April, you guys are so good. You're not going to be the one asking the commission questions, are you? April just needs to do her BIC up because she hadn't completed it. Now she's BIC eligible. So now she'll have to do her BIC up by June 10th. Everybody good with that? Questions, comments? Again, it's kind of funny to me that, I mean, you still have to have that 2 years experience. So unless you're like Lisa with experience from another state, you guys are still a couple years away from this, year and a half, two, you know, whatever. Things could change by then. So I say all this to say that when you're ready to be BIC eligible, make sure you go to the commission's website and find out the current criteria to become BIC eligible whenever you're ready. Fair enough? All right, coffee time. So I got 10:56. Let's come back at 11. I think my clock just switched. So we'll come back at 11:08. We keep going. was just looking, as we're coming back, I was looking at our license number, and Lauren, it looks like you're our newest licensee. So I'm just curious, when did you get your license?
I don't know why I remember the exact day, but I think April 18th.
April 18th. All right. Because
Yeah.
it was a good day. That's why you remember that. It was
Yeah,
a
it was
really good
exciting.
day.
Yeah,
So
very
back in
much so.
April, numbers were 338. So Sabrina, you probably weren't too much before that. So
April 18th, was that tax day, Lauren?
Oh, that's not a good day. I don't know. My dad's an accountant, so I should know, but
You should. Tax day. Was it with the 5th? What was it?
I
Somewhere
think
close
if the
to-
15th falls on a weekend,
15th.
then they give you a, little extension. So it could have been the
Mhm.
18th this year. Yep. Actually, yes,
Yeah, that Monday, exactly.
that one
Mhm.
day. Yep. My husband's an accountant too, so I hear about it. So again, these license numbers, this is really interesting to me. See you guys, I mean, like Keith, I'll tell you guys, once you guys get going in the industry, every once in a while, you may meet an agent, an active agent with a 5-digit license number. Respect, straight up respect right there. They've been in it that long. They have a 5-digit. Every once in a while, you'll still come across one. So acknowledge and recognize the the longevity there. So, all right, we're back. So let's take attendance and let's jump back in. Okay, so we talked about April. We decided April's got to do her BIC up because she hadn't yet completed her update course. And again, everybody keep in mind, this is in addition to an elective. So again, we'll talk about CE in just a bit, but the update is in addition to the elective. So this BIC designation, yeah, do I have a question? Don't let me not hear you, okay? This BIC designation thing, once you BIC designated, you have some options here. You could either become designated as the broker in charge of an office, maybe a brand new firm that's just getting started, or maybe you're sliding in the role of an existing firm. BICs do come and go, just like real estate agents come and go. So as long as you have a BIC in place, the firm's license is active and the provisional brokers affiliated with that firm's license is active. You may also be designated BIC of a new or existing sole proprietorship. And again, we will talk about the difference in a firm and a sole proprietor next. It's important to understand going into this that there's limitations of a sole proprietor. So there are things that you can't do as a sole proprietor, which may be why you want to have a firm license. The other thing that we need to understand about the designated broker in charge, we need each office location, each firm location, each office location needs a designated broker in charge. So a couple of you work for some big firms. I saw Keller Williams, I saw Allen Tate, I saw Coldwell Banker. You probably have several office locations. Let's say you affiliate with a firm, Berkshire Hathaway. Let's say you affiliate with a firm that has 5 office locations. How many designated broker in charges do you need? You need 5, right? You need 1 under each roof. You can't have a BIC managing more than 1 office. Okay, so you get 1 under each roof. If you have 5 locations, then you get 5 BICs. So the sole proprietor, first off, let's define what a sole proprietor is. They're a non-entity business, which means you're not an entity, you're not a firm. It's owned by one person, and that one person is liable for everything, all the debts and obligations of the company. The sole proprietor may, and I'm stressing the word may, have affiliated brokers. So you're sole in that you're not a firm, you're not an entity, but you could have people under you. We're going to talk in just a second about registering your assumed name through the Secretary of State. We'll talk a little bit more about that, how you can create a name for a firm or a sole proprietor. So the question about sole proprietors is, as a sole proprietor, do you need a BIC? Do you need a designated broker in charge as a sole proprietor? And the answer to that is It depends. As a sole proprietor, if you're going to have affiliated brokers, if you're going to have a trust account, or if you're going to advertise your services in any way, then you need a designated broker in charge. If you're a sole proprietor, maybe you're set up just for referral purposes only. You don't plan on working with buyers and sellers. The business that you're referring are those that reasonably know that you have a license, because you're not out handing out business cards. You're not out handing your advertising your services. As long as you're not going to affiliate anybody, maintain a trust account, or advertise your services, you can be a sole proprietor without a designated broker in charge. Everybody with me? The moment you bring in one affiliated broker, your sole proprietor has to have a designated broker in charge. The moment you open a trust account, your sole proprietorship has to have a BIC. And the moment you say, my name is Julie, here's one of my business cards, you have to have your sole proprietorship have a designated BIC. Do I have any questions on this?
The trust account, are you referring to, like if you're project manager, not project manager, excuse me. Well, let's explain the trust account, please.
We're going to talk about, also known as the escrow account. Maybe that's what you guys call it up there, escrow account.
Yeah.
We'll talk about trust account and escrow account in just a bit. Yep. Basically, the broad definition of a trust account is an account that has somebody else's money in it. So if you're going to hold security deposits, earnest money deposits, something like that, then you'd have to have a trust account. But not all firms, you only have to have a trust account if you're going to hold somebody else's money. Again,
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I guess that's the basic overall view of it. We'll get down in it in just a minute. So let's talk about this advertising your services. Again, you're not out listing property, because as soon as you put a sign in the front yard with your name and phone number on it saying, call me if you're interested in this property, aren't you advertising your services? So you're not taking listings. You can refer listings. So when somebody calls you and says, hey, I want to list my house, you can say, well, let me refer you to my friend Philip, and I'll collect a referral fee from Philip, you betcha. But I'm just in business for referring business. Maybe this is an option when you retire. This is my plan. Yeah.
So if you're just going to do referrals, how are you going to get the business if you don't advertise yourself saying you're just referring? Is it going to be just a word of mouth, friend?
Word of mouth. It comes from people that you should know you have a license. When I retire, I may sell you my book of business. So anything, any business you get that comes from my book of business, you pay me a referral fee, right? So word of mouth, absolutely, guys. Once you've been in it 20, 30 years, you have a clientele, right? You have a book of business. And that's my retirement plan. This is exactly what I plan on doing right here. I'm just going to sit somewhere with my toes in the sand, and I'm just going to sit there and collect my referral fees, because I'm sending all y'all my business. How's that sound? Cool. Actually, I'll get Justin to help me with my house down there with my toes in the sand. I need a condo, actually, because I don't want to maintain yard work. So I want to play in the ocean. I don't want to cut grass, Again, not all sole proprietors need a BIC. Okay, all firms and entities need a designated BIC. But the question of a sole proprietor, do you need a BIC? No, as long as you don't affiliate brokers, you don't have a trust account, you don't advertise services. Everybody good with that? So let's talk about the designated BIC. And there's certain things that the BIC is responsible for. Again, the commission rule 58A is the commission rule, and I only have it here for reference. If you need to know more about it or you want to find it, you will never be tested on. This is rule 58A.0104. That's not a test question. I mean, they're mean, but they're not cruel. Okay, so this is just here for a reference for you guys. The broker in charge, let me rephrase that, the designated broker in charge is responsible for maintaining or making sure that not only their license is active and current, but their affiliated brokers' licenses are active and current. Remember, those of you that are active, your BIC has been on you about renewing your license, right? You've probably gotten an email. Same thing about CE. Don't forget the CE deadline is June 10th. That's part of the BIC's responsibility, is to make sure that we keep our licenses active and current. We'll talk about active and current license status in just a bit. The broker in charge is responsible for agency disclosure and agreements within their branch, within their office. Everybody, please remember, whose agency agreement is it? Is it the individual agent? That's right, I heard it. It is whose?
The firm.
The firm. The agency relationship is between the client and the firm. So ultimately, who's going to be responsible for those agency agreements? The firm. Everybody with me? Now, should the individual agent keep a copy as well? Well, yeah, because what do we document? I don't know if you know me or not, but one thing I'm going to preach to y'all about is documenting what? Those of you that know me just went, everything. So as the firm, you document everything. Guess what you document as the individual agent? Everything. Again, we'll talk about this disciplinary action. Why do we document everything? Because I want to keep y'all out of real estate jail. And we'll talk about that disciplinary process. Hopefully we never see anybody in that situation. The BIC is also responsible for all the advertising of the firm. So whenever you promote a listing for sale, remember, it's not your listing, it's the firm's listing. So when you advertise a listing for sale, you have to say that it's firm XYZ's listing. You have to promote the firm, because could you throw your name in there? Of course, but it's the firm's listing. Failure to include the name of the firm is called a blind ad. The broker in charge is also responsible for retaining and maintaining records. Who remembers how many years we keep records? We keep everything for, yep, at least 3 years. Does that mean I can keep it for more than 3 years? Yeah, but what's the minimum? 3 years. Those of you that are affiliated, do you have some kind of e-program that you use? May that be dotloop or DocuSign or SkySlope or one of those other fancy ones. My firm uses dotloop. Dotloop keeps stuff for 10 years. So we are well within that at least 3-year range. 21 years ago, when I started in real estate, we didn't have dotloop. We had the file room. Y'all want to know what was in the file room? Files, stacks and rows and columns of file cabinets. Back when I started, it was all paper. And every year we had to go in and remove something that was 4 or 5 years old, send it to we had our shredder day, the shred truck came out so we could shred that stuff. Now we have this unlimited, I don't know what happens when we run out of cloud storage. Probably won't happen in my lifetime, but if we ever run out of the cloud storage, that's a different conversation for a different day. But we have better capabilities, better abilities to maintain, document everything, keep everything. Again, your firm should have files, and you, the individual agent, should have files as well. As a newly licensed agent, I would actually get in the habit of backing up your files. I have this little external drive. And the reason I say that, what happens if you leave the firm? Do you think you have access to those files anymore? No. So while I'm not encouraging anybody to leave your firm just yet, just keep that in the back of your mind that if you ever leave, you'll still want a record of all your files. So get you an external hard drive or something that you can keep your stuff. Comments on that? Other big responsibilities, you guys. Do you guys understand the liability the broker in charge has by taking you on? You guys should thank your BICs, because you guys are probably the BIC's biggest responsibility. You're probably the BIC's biggest liability. So when you go to the office on Monday, hug your BIC, take them a donut, whatever, tell them thank you, because they are taking on, and hopefully that's why they're closely supervising you. Hopefully they're not just affiliating you and letting you run amok on the streets, because they're responsible for your actions. If you mess up, you will take your BIC down with you. No question about it. Because the real estate commission is going to say, if you were actively supervising this provisional broker, we wouldn't be here, hopefully. If the BIC plans to leave, maybe they're going to go to another firm, maybe they're going to stop being the designated BIC, just go back to BIC eligible. They have to notify the commission if they're no longer going to serve as the designated BIC. If the company name changes, if the company moves, sometimes you need to upsize or downsize. So if you change your office location. The BIC is also responsible for any unlicensed employees managed by the firm, employed by the firm. So again, several of you with active firms, you guys have unlicensed employees, maybe sitting at the front desk, maybe helping you with your listing, your contracts, your closings, marketing, advertising. Unlicensed employees make your worlds go round. So when you're taking your BIC a donut on Monday, you may want to take your unlicensed employee a donut on Monday too. It's amazing the behind the scenes stuff. And I can say that maybe I'm tooting the unlicensed employee's horn because I used to be one. And it's amazing all the behind the scenes things that happen that assist you guys in being successful with buyers and sellers. So make sure you thank your unlicensed employees. The BIC is the one that's responsible for verifying that they're doing appropriate unlicensed employee activities. Remember, they can't show properties for sale. Do you think an unlicensed employee could hold an open house on Sunday? No, because that's a property for sale. I understand you're just holding the door open, but you're allowed, because think about it, an open house, is there a really good chance somebody could come in and want to ask questions, possibly even write up an offer? You know, unlicensed employees, they could assist you in doing your open house, but they can't do it on their own. And then if the firm has a trust account, that trust account is the BIC's responsibility. We're going to talk about the trust account next. Those of you that are active, did you find when you were talking to different firms that some firms didn't want to talk to you until you dropped your provisional status? Some firms said, go finish post licensing and then come see me. Did you guys hear that? Or some firms said, go get a couple years of experience under your belt and then come back and see me. Did you guys hear anything like that? No? No? Okay. Not all firms are willing to work with provisional brokers. Again, not just the liability, but they may not have in their mind adequate training programs in place. So if you haven't affiliated with a firm yet, I would highly recommend asking about training, making sure that they can get you proper training out front to get you started on the right foot. And also with your firms, once you're no longer a provisional broker, I would also inquire about ongoing training. Because one thing you've probably quickly learned is this industry is ever changing. I mean, you want a firm that's going to meet with you at some point in July and talk to you about the form changes they're going to take to effect on July 1st. So you know you're properly using the proper forms as of the form date. So training, beginning, middle, and end of your real estate career is so very important because things change so frequently. But I just say that to say not all BICs are either want to or are adequately prepared to take on a provisional broker. So if you heard that when you were interviewing, don't take offense. It's okay. Maybe they just don't feel like that they could properly serve you and they don't want to put you in a position that would get you or them in trouble. So let's go, a couple things. We get off PowerPoint a lot, which isn't bad, right? Who wants to stare at a PowerPoint all the time? Let's look first. I want to go into Learn, Test, Pass down here in our Campbell folder. Just a kind of a brief side note. We mentioned that the BIC is responsible for all agency disclosure and agency agreements. And as of July of last year, was it just 2021? We changed our working with real estate agent disclosure. It was the brochure, and now it's a disclosure. Now we have a form that looks like this. You guys may or may not have seen the old one. If you didn't, it was horrible, and we were all so happy to see this new one. You probably heard this resounding woohoo across the state of North Carolina on July 1st of 2021, and that was brokers celebrating the new form. We were very happy to see this. It's easier. It makes it easier for us to present our disclosure, our working with real estate agent disclosure to the consumer. And I'm telling you, and you guys, you guys have done it before, those of you doing transaction and presented your disclosure before, was the first time you did it, was it bumpy and awkward and you felt like you were tripping over your own words? You're like, what am I saying? It gets easier. Trust me, the more you do it and you perfect your little, let's call it your elevator speech, it gets easier. But I think these forms help us better explain it to the consumer than the old brochure. There are two disclosure forms. There's one for the seller and one for the buyer. I have them both here for you guys to review if you like. I think these boxes marked important are just that. They are important. So don't ignore them, pay attention to them. They're marked important for a reason. And the very first thing that it says is what? That this form is not a contract. Buyers and sellers need to understand that we are not entering into any kind of relationship. We are not forming agency. We are not creating agency. All we are doing with this form is disclosing agency. It's a disclosure. A lot of people, not a lot, some people are going to be reluctant to sign it because they just met you. They don't know if they can trust you or not. And here you are with this piece of paper going, sign here. So I think it's important that they know that this is not a contract. This is just signing that you've had the discussion and acknowledge receipt. In a real estate transaction, it's important that you understand whether an agent represents you. As part of what we're doing with our disclosures, we're letting this consumer know, where do I stand? Do I have loyalty to the seller? Do I have loyalty to the buyer? Or do I not have loyalty to anybody yet until we know what transaction we could be getting into? Real estate agents are required to review this form with you no later than when? There's that first substantial contact. You'll talk about first substantial contact in 301. That's our agency relationship and responsibility. So you'll spend a lot more time with this one. But you know, again, big picture. First substantial contact is that moment in time when you go from talking about the property to the people. I can't ask the buyer a lot of questions about price point, where you want to live and what kind of house you want to buy and how many bedrooms you want until I first disclose my agency status. And I need to be alert for the buyer to say, this is my price point. This is the kind of house I want to buy. How many bedrooms, da, da, da. We always have to be on alert for first substantial contact. The big thing about this form that I want us all to see, what are we telling the consumer right here? Don't you share anything confidential with me until you decide to hire me. And that's the big thing that the consumer needs to understand. People assume, you know what happens when you assume, right? People assume that we have their best interest out the gate. And that's just not true. You want me to have your best interest, you've got to hire me. I don't owe you much until you decide to hire me. If you never hire me, I don't owe you confidentiality. Let's say, for example, you're going on a listing appointment and you find out it's a competitive listing appointment, which means the seller's talking to multiple agents to decide which one they want to hire. You go on your listing appointment and the seller starts babbling on about all the problems about the house and why they have to sell within the next 3 months and da 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 da. And you let them talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and share their life story with you, because they will, and on and on and on. And then you later find out that they hired one of the other agents they were interviewing, not you. Well, bummer, you didn't get that listing. You're not going to get them all. It just works that way. Next week, you get a call from a buyer that says, I'm interested in this property and I want to hire you. Who do you owe that loyalty to? Do you owe that loyalty to the seller that you had the conversation with last week? No, your loyalty is to who? That buyer. So when you and that buyer are going through the house, you owe it to your buyer to point out all the problems. You owe it to your buyer to say, I know for a fact they have to sell within 4 months. You guys see why it's important that we make sure the seller understand this? Make sure they are aware of what they're telling us. And that, to me, that's that third bullet point there is the most powerful, is the most important part of these disclosures, is to make sure they understand that. I mean, otherwise the agent can share your confidential information with others. My goodness, this might be a good time to read to them because it's right. I don't know another way to simplify that. It is right there. The rest of this form, and this was a source of confusion when we first got this form, but if you had to take CE this year, it was cleared up. The further training has gotten us on the right path. The rest of this form discusses the type of agency that we might practice with, in this case, the seller. And you'll see here, it says, note to agent, check all relationship types below that may apply to this seller. So basically, as the agent, we're going to check the options that the firm provides, not how we're going to proceed, but the options that we may proceed. Does that make sense to everybody? Just because we check dual agency does not mean that we are in dual agency, because this is not a contract. All we're doing by checking dual agency is saying that my firm will allow me to do dual agency. My firm will allow me to do designated dual agency. So the agent checks those appropriate boxes. Everybody good with that? Questions on that? You got a place for the seller to sign, agent's name and license number. I think you guys, if you don't have your license number memorized, go ahead and memorize it because you're going to need it everywhere you go. And then we go through that same little exercise with the buyers. Again, checking all relationship type below that may apply, not necessarily how we're going to work, but how the firm will allow me to work. So that's just short and sweet of the new disclosure. The other thing I have in here, just for you guys a reference, again, if you're actively affiliated, then you probably have access to this, but you're still inactive, you may or may not. So that's why I put it here, just so you can see it. And this is laid out in brochure form. So you'd be able to, all those columns, you see those blank columns would be a fold. So you could like open it up like a big accordion if you actually print it this way, or I just load it as a flat PDF. So because of the brochure style of it, it actually starts on page 2. But I just want to point out, when we were talking earlier about not knowing what to say when you meet with buyers and sellers, this is a great piece to help put words in your mouth. So it talks about both parties, like what does agency mean? What is an agency agreement? And then it breaks it down. Here's Q&A specifically for sellers. So when you're sitting there having a conversation with sellers, you can just focus on this. I think there's Q&A for buyers. So again, it kind of depends on what consumer you're talking to. Somebody interested in buying or selling. Both of these discuss dual agency for the seller, dual agency for the buyer. What happens when our agency agreement ends? Termination of agency agreement, the Q&A on that. And then my absolute favorite piece, because I love pictures, they actually gave us pictures to help us better explain the different agency relationships to the consumer. So you have the buyer, broker A, and then you have broker B and seller. Broker A is red, broker B is blue. That implies that they are with 2 different firms. So there's buyer agency and there's seller agency. You see how each broker is holding the hand of their buyer or seller. Then you have dual agency, 2 scenarios of dual agency, possible scenarios of dual agency. 1 firm, 1 broker, holding both hands of buyer and seller, or you could have one firm, two brokers. You see how they're holding hands and they're the same color. So that's letting us know that these two brokers are with the same firm. They're holding hands, but one's working with the buyer, one's working with the seller. And then when we go into designated, we're still with the same firm, but we're no longer holding hands. You've been designated to work exclusively with the buyer or the seller. So I think the pictures can help us better explain it to the consumer. I love this Q&A brochure. It's so much more helpful than what we used to have. And if you don't know what we used to have, be very grateful. This is much, much better. Questions or comments? Again, and the BIC's the one that's responsible to making sure that all the agents are keeping up with agency disclosure and agency agreements properly. I want to come borrow Sabrina's fan. You look great.
Kind of sitting on the back porch. I'm like, it's pretty, it's breezy.
That's natural wind. That's not a fan.
Oh yeah, that's natural wind. It's
Oh,
super
wow.
windy up here. There's like no humidity. It's very pretty. So it's
Very-
outdoor class.
Send it, because you're up in Mount Airy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, send it down our way, please. Especially for those of us that don't have AC. I don't know if you guys were on the call early enough, but my AC's out. So today, this weekend, I'm very grateful for family and friends that have portable AC units. We got one in the bedroom and one in my office, because I don't know what I would be doing otherwise. I'd be sitting here fanning myself the whole time. So thank you, family and friends that came to our rescue.
Well, mine's is out too. I'm waiting for the electrician because I need a special with that plug thing. So I got an air conditioner, but I need the, you know how like
The
the
adapter or whatever.
No, it has this. I think it's a 220 or something like that. So that's
gotcha.
kind of cheaper for me to do versus getting a whole new system.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So when's your guy coming out?
I'm waiting now.
Oh, nice.
So I
So he
just
should
need
be
to
out
let them in the
today.
door. So I just need to let them in the door and then they'll go
Great.
and do their work.
There you go. Well, good. So you'll be cool by the end of the day then.
I hope so.
I got my
look-
guy
look
coming
slightly-
Monday and I'm
You look
sorry.
You look slightly jealous, Julie.
I know, right? I'm like, today, my guy's not coming till Monday, but I got portable AC units to get me through. So hopefully when he comes on Monday, he'll be able to, because I got to get a new one. So hopefully he'll be able to install my unit. I hope by the time I see you guys next week, I got like icicles hanging off of. I hope it happens that fast. All right, another responsibility we said that the broker in charge has is if the office is going to maintain a trust account, then the broker in charge is responsible for that trust account. So there's a couple of videos. I'll tell you in just a second. There's a couple videos. Again, we're in our resources. I want to make sure we know where we can find this. And under resources, you have video library. And when we look on our video library, we got a section for brokers. This is where most of our videos are. You guys are past this, broker license applicants. There's a few things for consumers. We'll see some of those. And then when you guys are ready to become real estate educators or open your own real estate school, you can kind of click on this tab and have that. But right now we're under the 4 brokers and a few videos the commission wants us to watch about the trust account. The first one is, do I need a trust account? So let's check this one out.
Also called an escrow account, a trust account is separate, custodial, and available on demand. Separate means that you only deposit other people's money into the account and not your own money or your company's money. Custodial means you've taken custody of the money, and the persons who have an interest in the monies, like the parties to the transaction or managers of the HOA, may not access the money. Available on demand means the funds can be withdrawn at any time without prior notice. Brokers working in property management or any broker who will hold earnest money or other monies in trust for others, must have a trust account. Trust money is any money belonging to others that has been received by a real estate broker who is acting as an agent in a real estate transaction. Examples of trust money include earnest money deposits, tenant security deposits, rent payments, repair reserves, HOA dues and assessments. Creating a trust account is easy. First, pick a bank, savings and loan, or credit union that is federally insured. Then make sure they agree to provide your account records to the Commission upon request. Next, include trust account or escrow account in the account name, and be sure the full account name, including trust account or escrow account, is pre-printed on all bank statements, deposit tickets, and checks. Finally, deposit enough of your money, usually $100 or less, into the account to cover bank fees or have the fees drafted from a separate operating account. Brokers may legally use interest-bearing trust accounts provided they have written permission from all parties to do so that specifies how and to whom the interest will be dispersed. Brokers must also carefully account for all accrued interest and remove it from the account regularly to avoid having more than $100 of their own funds in the trust account. There is no need for a separate trust account for the different types of deposits that you will make. However, you may choose to keep them in separate trust accounts for record-keeping purposes. You only need one account, unless you are also managing your own personal properties or you manage HOAs or POAs. Any broker managing HOAs or POAs must have a separate trust account for each association. Remember, if you are managing properties owned by you and/or your firm, you may need a separate trust account to avoid commingling, which means mixing your money with other people's money. Do you need a trust account? If the answer is yes, visit ncrec.gov today and register for the Commission's Trust Account course to learn how to keep and maintain correct records.
Okay, so we're going to talk about these videos, these points in just a second. Before we do that though, let's go ahead and check out the second trust account video they want us to watch, which is trust account reconciliation.
Do you need help understanding how to reconcile your trust accounts each month? The rules for reconciling real estate trust accounts can be found on the Commission's website. Start with your trust account bank statement. For each transaction shown as cleared on the bank statement, check it off as cleared on the Trust Account General Journal. Identify any transaction shown as cleared on the Trust Account bank statement that has not been recorded on the Trust Account General Journal. In this case, printed check charges are shown as cleared on the bank statement, but the charges have not been recorded on the General Journal. So let's record the printed check charge on the journal. Don't forget, you need to post the printed check charges on the appropriate ledger too. In this case, the company funds ledger. Now we're ready to prepare your bank reconciliation. Start with the month ending balance on the bank statement. Enter or write that balance on your bank reconciliation. We are preparing this bank reconciliation for the period ending January 31st. The ending balance from the bank statement is $3,185. Any deposits in transit as of January 31st must be added to the ending balance of the bank statement. Deposits in transit are deposits that have been recorded on the Trust Account General Journal, but they have not cleared on the bank statement. In examining the Trust Account General Journal, you can see that the January 31st deposit in the amount of $2,500 has not been checked off as cleared. So, enter that deposit in transit on your bank reconciliation. Any outstanding checks as of January 31st must be subtracted from the ending balance of the bank statement. Outstanding checks are checks that have been recorded in the Trust Account Journal, but they have not cleared on the bank statement. In examining the Trust Account General Journal, you can see that checks number 102 and 104 have not been checked off as cleared. So enter the outstanding checks on your bank reconciliation. Now, total your outstanding checks. Next, Add deposits in transit to your ending balance from the bank statement and subtract outstanding checks to get your reconciled bank balance. Compare your reconciled bank balance of $4,220 to the balance on your trust account general journal as of January 31st. These balances should agree. In our example, the balances do agree and you have finished preparing your bank reconciliation. If the reconciled bank balance as of January 31st does not agree with the trust account general journal balance as of January 31st, then you have an error. Some helpful hints to find the error are: check your bank reconciliation by making sure you entered the right amounts on the reconciliation and that the math is correct. Check your math on the trust account general journal. Retrace the deposits and checks and any other debits and credits clearing on the bank statement to the trust account general journal, making sure the amounts agree. Once you have reconciled the month-end bank statement balance to your general journal balance, then you must determine if the general journal balances to your ledgers. To do this, prepare a trial balance of all your active trust account ledgers. In this example, there are 4 active trust account ledgers: the company funds ledger with a $75 balance, the Main Street ledger with a $2,500 balance, the North Boulevard ledger with a $600 balance, and finally, the Johnson Street ledger with a $1,045 balance. Prepare your ledger trial balance from the active trust account ledgers you identified. First, title your document. Next, list your ledgers and the balances on the ledgers as of January 31st. After you've listed all the active ledgers and the balances, add the balances together to determine the total. In this example, the total of the ledgers is $4,220. Now compare the total on your January 31st ledger trial balance to your January 31st trust account general journal balance. They must agree. Here, you can see that the balances are both $4,220, and the $4,220 also equals your January 31st reconciled bank balance. Your last step in completing your trust account reconciliation is to prepare a worksheet showing that the balances of your trust account general journal, your ledger trial balance, and your reconciled bank statement balance are in agreement as of the January 31st cutoff date. You can do this by recording the trust account general journal and reconciled bank balances on the ledger trial balance. Now, you have reconciled your real estate trust accounts in compliance with the Real Estate Commission's rules. Be sure to maintain your monthly trust account reconciliations for a period of 3 years. For more information, go to ncrec.gov or give us a call.
Clear as mud? Everybody ready to run out and maintain and reconcile their trust account? So here's the good news. If you ever are broker in charge or open a firm, operate a firm that requires a trust account, the commission requires you to take their trust account class. So everything that this gentleman just said in 5 minutes, they pretty much put in like a 4 or 5 hour class. So they get into detail. They actually help you with, so you know how you're to maintain the records according to their standards. You may have an accountant that helps you. Your accountant needs to also know the Real Estate Commission standards, right? They have a certain way they want you guys to have it done, which is why they throw you this 5-minute video and then they offer you the class. We'll talk more about that in just a second. With the trust account, I think one of the videos commented, one of the videos said, not every firm has to have a trust account. The property manager has to have a trust account because the property manager is going to be dealing with security deposits. We need them in an impartial holding ground until the end of the lease. The property manager may also run rent through the trust account, right? And then disperse it from there about between the owner, the firm, all the people that would get paid disbursement from the rent. The sales office, though, may not have a trust account. The sales office will only need a trust account if they're going to hold earnest money deposits. And I'm telling you, a lot of sales firms are doing away with a trust account because of the liability, because of the risk. So if you're just sales, we have the option of letting our closing attorney hold the earnest money deposit. Closing attorneys have to have an escrow account because that's how they disperse payment after closing. That's what you and I get paid out of. That's what the, you know, the lender and the attorney and the home inspector, everybody that's waiting to get paid with closing. So if you're going to open your own firm one day, unless you're going into property management, I don't want you to think that you have to have a trust account. Only if you're going to hold somebody else's money. So let's talk about a few things that we saw from that video. First off, the trust account is a separate account from your operating account. So if you do affiliate with a firm, or you do open a firm that has a trust account, you have two accounts: the trust account that holds somebody else's money, and then your operating account, which you use to pay your bills, power bill, agents, etc. Your money does not belong in the trust account. Trust account money doesn't belong in your account. The trust account is custodial, which means the people that have access to it is limited. Specifically, people who have money in the trust account shouldn't have access to the trust account. The broker in charge is ultimately responsible for the trust account. They can let unlicensed agents or unlicensed employees maintain it. Again, back in my admin days, I maintained the trust account for my BIC. But if the real estate commission ever showed up and said, show us your trust account books, they weren't talking to me. They were talking to the broker in charge, because that's the one that's responsible. So who touches it should be limited, and absolutely somebody that doesn't have funds in it should not be touching it. Hands down, the biggest violation of the trust account is commingling. Commingling is putting your money in the trust account or somebody else's money from the trust account in your operating account. There have been cases. Y'all ready for this? This is the fun thing about real estate. We don't have to make things up. This stuff actually happens. There have been cases in the past where broker in charges have got maybe a notice from the city. If you don't pay your power bill by 5 o'clock today, we're going to cut your power. And the BIC has said, oh my gosh, I don't have the money today. I'll have it on Monday, but I don't have it today. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to borrow money from the trust account to pay my power bill to keep my lights on. And then when I get paid on Monday, I'll pay the trust account back. That is commingling in its finest. You cannot switch those monies. You cannot switch. There is one exception to the commingling rule. And that is if your bank charges a monthly fee, an automatic draft for a fee. You can have up to $100 of your own money in the trust account to pay that fee. So if it's like $12 a month, they'll do 12, 12, 12, 12. And then when you need to replenish it, that's the only exception to commingling, and only if your bank charges a fee. The trust account is an on-demand account, which means, let's say your real estate firm has a bad day and every single one of your contracts terminate today. That's a bad day. That trust money needs to be on demand to disperse today to buyer or seller, whichever one is applicable. You can't say, let me wait till Monday. That money is on demand, readily available as soon as those contracts terminate. It needs to be in an FDIC bank that's lawfully doing business in North Carolina. The bank doesn't need to be located in North Carolina, but it needs to lawfully be doing business in North Carolina. Not all banks are FDIC. For example, credit unions are not FDIC. So if you walk into your bank and you know that there's either a sticker on the front door that is FDIC or it's not, all of the trust account records need to say trust account or escrow account. If let's just say you're a sole proprietor, so you're a one-man firm and you're going to hold somebody else's money. So you have a trust account, which as a sole proprietor, one-man firm, you now have to make yourself the designated broker in charge, right? Because you have a trust account. But because you're a one-man firm, nobody else is with you. And let's say the owner of that one-man firm passes away. We need everything to say trust account or escrow account so that money doesn't get wrapped up in their estate. If we label everything as trust account or escrow account, the estate knows it's not my money. They know that that money belongs to somebody else. We don't, it's on demand, so we don't want to hold it from anybody. The trust account records, both by the firm and the bank, need to be made available to the Real Estate Commission upon request. So if they come to audit, you need to provide them with the records. And then, as we said, the commingling exception, you can have $100 of your own money in the trust account only if your bank charges a monthly fee. That way they can just draft from that $100. Do I have anybody that has rental properties? You own property and you rent them out? Not yet? Okay. As an unlicensed person, before you got your license, if you owned rental properties that you were renting, you could have a security deposit either in a trust account or a bond. Now that you're licensed, if you were gonna start purchasing investment properties, your only option is a trust account. So you would be doing it for yourself, right? Your property manager for you, because it's property that you rent, but that money still has, now that you're licensed, you're held to a higher standard, and that money needs to be in an official trust account. Yes, Sabrina?
Would that also require, like, if you're doing an Airbnb of sort, is that essentially the same thing?
If there's any kind of refundable deposit.
Okay.
Yep, because that you need a safe holding ground until that money is dispersed to whomever. And that's what that trust account is that safe holding ground, if you will.
Okay.
Good question. I have a little condo that we rent out. We have a tenant, and let's see, that's been about a year and a half now, something like that. And I did the trust, created, because I'm licensed, so I created a trust account. I did the commission's trust account class, so reconciling it every month and all that. Again, that's how I know that that class does a much better job about breaking it down than the 5 minutes you just got from that video. Luckily, I haven't been called yet, but I mean, I only have one condo and I've had the same tenant for the last year and a half. So that security deposit just rise from month to month to month. My books are really easy to balance because it's the same thing from month to month. But at the end of the tenancy, then I'll have that money in the security deposit. We either give it back to the tenant, or I can keep whatever portion for lost rent, major damages to the unit, you know, et cetera, that kind of thing. But there are, I think it's just important to mention that if you guys are going into investment, you need to look into that. You need to look at the trust account, 93 AG license law. And like I said, the trust account or a bond, if you're unlicensed, you know, guys, bottom line, if we don't handle the trust account properly, then we as the landlords don't have any rights to the security deposit at the end of the tenancy. So I want to make sure you guys have your right to collect any needed funds as the landlord by having it in a trust account. The tenant could take you to court, and they will win, and then you get zero. Other rules to the trust account, we have rules about when we deposit, when to deposit. Checks, we need to deposit within 3 banking days of receipt or contract formation. Your buyer may hand you their earnest money deposit while you're still negotiating the offer. You're not under contract, but you're negotiating the offer. And they may say, I had a buyer once, he was getting on a plane to go back to Florida. And before he got on the plane, we were pretty sure his offer was going to get accepted, but he went ahead and handed me his earnest money deposit check. I'm not going to deposit that check upon receipt because we're not under contract yet, right? The buyer doesn't owe the earnest money until a contract is formed. I just had it upon receipt. Offer was accepted, we went under contract. That's when my 3-day clock started to get that deposit in. If that offer never became a contract, then I needed to get that money back to my buyer or destroy of it according to their instructions. Do you write void on it? Do you shred it? However they tell you, it is their money. You're just holding it for them. Everybody good on that? 3 banking days of receipt or contract formation. We don't need to deposit until the contract's been formed. Cash, If your firm accepts cash, talk to your BIC, but if your firm accepts cash, get it in the bank right away. Because if that contract's never formed, I can put cash in today, know it's going to clear, and then write a check out right back to the buyer if the offer never becomes a contract. If you deposit that check, you got to wait for it to clear. Does that make sense? But you don't want to hang on to cash, especially in this day and age. Have you guys heard about some of the amounts of earnest money deposits? Could you imagine $50,000 laying around in your office waiting to see if this offer is going to become a contract? So if your firm accepts cash as an earnest money deposit, which, goodness, we can go get a money order, a cashier's check. That'd be much less risky than straight up cash. But cash, you're going to deposit within 3 days, no matter what, contract formation or not. Outside of trust money, and again, when we're talking about trust money, typically we're talking about earnest money deposits and tenant security deposit. So whether you're going for sale or for rent. But we do have other monies in our possession throughout the transaction as well. Due diligence fee, for example, the option fee, if you're doing an option to purchase and contract. Whenever you have somebody else's money in your possession, is your responsibility. When it's in your hand, you're responsible for it. When you get somebody else's money in your possession, my suggestion to you is get it to where it needs to go. Don't sit on it. Don't hang on to it. Deliver it, because we have a duty to safeguard it. I know that says deliver within 3 days. That's what the commission says. Julie recommends that you get it to where it needs to go as soon as possible. Now, what's your test going to ask you on? The commission or Julie? The test is going to ask you on the commission. Deposit within 3 days. And we always follow the directions of the buyer. It's their money. When it comes to, for example, due diligence, we're just acting as a delivery person. We're getting it from the buyer to the seller. So let's say, for example, you get your buyer under contract today. Buyer and seller accepted offer today. Yay, little mini celebration. You meet up with your buyer this afternoon to get the due diligence check and the earnest money check. Okay. And you are in your car en route to deliver those checks. You're going to take the due diligence to the listing firm so they can deliver it to the seller. You're en route and the buyer calls you and says, do not deliver that due diligence fee. I have got to follow the directions of my buyer. If they tell me not to do, if it's still in my hand and they tell me not to deliver it, I said, are you sure? You could be in breach. The seller could come after you. It would terminate the contract. I mean, all sorts of things could happen. Are you sure? Yeah. I do not want you to deliver that check. We've got to follow the instructions of our buyer because we're only acting as transportation. This is not my money. I have no say in what happens to this money. I'm just assisting my buyer with delivery. What questions or comments do I have on that? We usually don't like that because we know it's going to be bad things for our buyers if the seller never gets the money, right? It could give the seller an out. But it's not my money to say what's going to happen to it. Okay. Back to our earnest money deposit. When do we disperse it? Well, different things happen to the earnest money deposit, whether we make it to closing or not. I mean, first off, are we going to go to closing or are we going to terminate the transaction? If we get to go to closing and the listing firm is holding the earnest money deposit, then the rules say that it cannot be dispersed to the closing attorney no more than 10 days prior to settlement. So closing is coming next week. You can go to your listing firm, go to your firm. They have rules and procedures in place on how to handle this. You say, I have a closing on Wednesday. They'll cut you an earnest money check so you can take it with you to closing so the attorney has all the funds. But that can't happen no more than 10 days prior to settlement. If we don't make it to closing, the earnest money gets dispersed to either the seller or the buyer. It just depends. If we terminate and we are still in due diligence. We terminate and we're still in due diligence. Who gets the earnest money deposit? We terminate
The buyer.
and we're still in due diligence, the buyer's going to get their earnest money back. If we terminate and we're after due diligence, now who gets the earnest money?
The seller.
The seller. Yep. So when the contract terminates, when depends on who's going to get it. But what we need to understand, again, you guys, this is not my money. This is the buyer's and the seller's money. I'm just safeguarding it for them. And when that contract terminates, both parties have to agree to release the earnest money. And failure to agree to release the earnest money means that that earnest money is in dispute. So when earnest money is in dispute, the escrow agent, whomever is holding the earnest money, cannot release it per the terms of the contract. We have to have both parties' agreement to release it. So the escrow agent, unless they have both parties' agreement to release it, they just sit on it. They wait for the two to come together. And after a certain amount of time, if we can't come to agreement, the escrow agent can release it to the clerk of courts and let the two go hash it out in front of a magistrate. The escrow agent can never decide what, even if they're an attorney, this isn't just the real estate firm, even if the escrow agent is the attorney, because it's not our money, it's the buyer or seller's money, and they have to agree to release it. Everybody good with that? We have termination forms, multiple scenarios of terminating. We don't get into those in this class, but one of them, for example, is termination of contract without release of earnest money. So we agree we're going to terminate, we're just not on board with what happens to the earnest money. Questions on that? We mentioned this, the trust account, the basic trust account procedures class that the commission offers. You have to do this course within 120 days of assuming responsibility of a trust account. Maybe you're becoming big of a firm that already has a trust account, or maybe you're starting a new firm with a trust account. Maybe you're starting a new trust account. So you have 120 days. 120 days to take the trust account class. The good news is you do get CE elective credit for it as well. So you can, knock off your elective for that year. 2 birds, 1 stone. And if you have unlicensed staff that's going to be touching the trust account, the commission suggests that you have them take the course as well. Because again, the trust account has to be maintained, not according to CPA or general accounting principle rules. It's got to be maintained according to the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. So that's why they provide this class. Questions or comments on the trust account? Any of you that are affiliated, you guys have firms that have a trust account? Chastity's does. I bet you Maria's does. Michelle's. Yep. Philip. Yes. Yeah. So I guess some of the bigger brands will have a trust account. Again, your firm will tell you how they want you to handle that. When you request, how you request, all that good stuff. But ultimately the BIC is the one that's responsible for it. I see the trust account in the sales office. It's, less and less are maintaining it. Again, just a liability. When I took this trust account class, I want to say they said something like 80% of sales offices do not have a trust account. Property manager has to, but the sales, it's optional. And quite frankly, if I can put that risk and liability on somebody else, why not? What else about the trust account? The video mentioned that you only need one trust account. There are a lot of firms out there, well, not a lot. There are some that do for sale and for rent. So they offer properties for sale and they do property management, which means they're holding tenant security deposit and earnest money deposit. The commission says you only have to have one trust account. You could choose to have different trust accounts if that helps keep your records, but you only have to have one. The only time you need more than one trust account is if you're a property management company that has multiple HOAs. I think that the general rule of thumb is that each HOA gets their own trust account. So if you're managing 10 HOAs and you got 10 trust accounts, but that's the only time you need more than one, unless you choose. What else? Are we having fun so far? I told you license law and commission rule would be exhilarating. All right, well, I worked through our last break because I know we're getting awfully close to lunch. So we're at a really good stopping place. I'd hate to start something new just to have to, you know, break off in the next couple minutes. So is everybody good if we go ahead and break for lunch? I usually don't get much arguments when it comes to lunchtime. So what we're gonna do, how we're gonna handle this. We are all, let me stop sharing for a second. We're all gonna log out. We're gonna take a 30-minute lunch and then we're all gonna log back on and then we'll be here for the afternoon. So I got 12:15 now. So let's come back at 12:45. I'll get back on at like 12:40. So I'll come on a couple minutes early if you want to come on and just make sure everything's up and running. And then we'll get started right back up at 12:45. Sound good? All right. Y'all enjoy your lunch. Don't eat too much so you come back sleepy. And we'll see you guys at 12:45. If you want to hang tight.
Yeah.